Let's unbox the Black Series Episode 3 Anniversary Carded 6-inch figure of Count Dooku.
Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it.
Hello there, thanks for visiting Varykino. Today I'm very excited to be unboxing the Black Series 6-inch scale figure of Count Dooku in the Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary packaging. I actually sourced this figure about a month ago here in New Zealand. We got a very small shipment. I was able to snag one before it sold out. But just this past week there was a much larger restock. It was on sale and I was able to grab a second one to open because I'm very nostalgic about the Revenge of the Sith packaging era. Those awesome action figures for the prequels, so I really want to collect up as many of the figures in this collectible packaging range as I can. So far I have 5: Kit Fisto, Count Dooku, Clone Commander Cody, Tactical Ops Trooper, and R2-D2. I'm especially excited to get Count Dooku, being such an iconic prequel character, and I don't actually own this figure in my Black Series lineup, so I'm very excited that I'm finally able to open this one up and add him to my Black Series collection. There is some minor backing card damage, so I think this one is going to be perfect to open up, and I can't wait. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, we'll take a closer look at Count Dooku out of the packaging. We'll go over the articulation and the details, but first let's take a really quick look at the packaging. The packaging for the Black Series Revenge of the Sith 20th Anniversary collection of 6-inch scale figures is a scaled up replica of the original 3.75-inch action figure line from 2005. In behind the figure we have a fantastic stylized Darth Vader helmet looming over fiery Mustafar lava, and at the top we have Anakin Skywalker versus Obi-Wan Kenobi. In terms of the packaging, there are 3 minor differences that may catch your eye. The cutout for the hanger at the top is a different shape. The bubble is a lot more rounded at the top compared to the original, and for the cardboard insert in the front window, the accent stripe for the 6-inch scale is yellow versus orange on the original. I really love the promotional image here of Count Dooku from the film. I love it. Seeing it next to the character looks fantastic. Moving on to the back, we have again a little bit of promotional imagery of Count Dooku from the film. We've got the character name and the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith logo here at the top, and we also have some nice promotional photography of the figure itself. We have a short blurb not about the figure but about this line of figures instead. Celebrate the 20th anniversary of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith with figures from the Black Series featuring commemorative packaging. Overall, absolutely fantastic packaging, but I'm very thankful that I have 2 so I can open this one up, so let's get stuck in. So now I have the Count Dooku figure out of the packaging. We also have the lightsaber accessory and alternate lightsaber blade to look at later, but of course let's take a closer look at the figure. The most obvious thing about getting him out of the packaging is we now get a full proper look at the soft goods cape. Looks really nice. It was tucked in behind the figure, kind of inserted through a slot in the plastic, holding it in tightly behind the figure. So we do have just a few creases here in the back where it was all kind of gathered together to hide behind the figure, but this will probably ease out now that it's out of the packaging and it is behind the figure. Viewed from the front, it looks nice and smooth, which is really nice. There is some stitching here to give it some shape. There are 2 seams that start at the neckline, going over the shoulder, going all the way down to the hem on both sides. So there are 3 pieces, the front left, front right, and the back panel. Looks really nice. So we've got some shaping over the shoulder, which is always good, and we can see that stitching here on the inside. It isn't overlocked or serged, but of course we're not going to be washing this cape or handling it too much. It doesn't really need that extra reinforcement step, and it looks just nice and tidy anyway. Now of course we can see that there are 2 colors here. Count Dooku has a lined cape. That would be a lot of bulk and a lot of extra sewing for Hasbro, so they have used a fabric with the 2 different color sides. We've got the dark chocolate brown on the outside and the paler, almost a gold brown on the inside, which is really nice. So if you want to sort of fold the cape back over the shoulders, you're going to get that really nice color difference there without sort of adding too much bulk. Very, very nice. It's got a really nice length. When I'm standing him upright, it comes almost to the floor, just kind of skirting there. It's a nice straight sort of hem. Of course, capes do tend to curve up a little bit at the sides as they fall over the shoulders, especially if you've got the arms out. It's going to pull the hem up a little bit, but we can see it looks really nice, lovely curve and shape there, and it just looks fantastic. I am a big fan of soft goods elements for Star Wars action figures, especially when it comes to capes and cloaks. Figures like Darth Vader, it just looks so different when you've got a full flowing fabric cape compared to a plastic one that just kind of sits there very stiffly. So I think this is fantastic. I love that it's a fabric cape, not a plastic one. I was interested to see if perhaps this is going to be able to sort of shift around, maybe even pull out over the head, but giving the clasp of the chain here a little bit of a wiggle, it feels like this is pegged and potentially probably even glued on to the chest, because this doesn't feel like it's going to move. So it's not going to pivot around on the shoulders there. It's not going to sort of move and kind of look like it's coming up around the neck. It's anchored very nicely across the chest, holding it in place. We've got a little bit of sculpting detail for the clasps and a little bit of a chain. It looks like it is cast in a grey plastic. It's not painted, so we don't have to worry about it sort of looking a bit awkward there. It looks very nice and clean. Some really nice crisp detail there for the clasps. I really like it. Looking really nice. We've got just a tiny bit of a wrinkle on this shoulder, which is giving it just a few bumps. Much smoother on this one, but I'm sure this is going to ease out with time. You can see just how high in the back it comes, right up under the hair there. I might try and sort of fold it down just a little bit so it's not going to get caught underneath the hair when I'm going to move the head around. But of course, that's a job for final adjustments before adding to my eventual permanent display. But he looks really nice. The edge here along the front, and of course the hem, is just a cut edge. It's very nice and straight, of course, very nice. It's not reinforced, so you can kind of fluff up the edges here if you do handle them a lot. So I'm going to be very gentle with this one. I don't want it to look sort of a bit fuzzy and worn and played with. I love that crisp edge and I want to maintain that. So I'm going to be very gentle with the soft goods element here, but it looks fantastic. So of course the other main element of Count Dooku is the expression here. Hasbro often sort of errs on the side of caution and often sculpts kind of neutral expressions, but I don't think I've ever seen Count Dooku with a neutral expression. He's always got very intense eyebrows and intense eyes, because of course Christopher Lee was just so distinctive, especially around the face. I love the likeness here. Those intense eyes, of course, we've got the modern digital printing for the eyes, so you get the really fine detail, the pupils and everything like that. And of course we've got those strong eyebrows. So I love the expression here, just the sort of the little creases under the eyes. Really, really nice. I love the expression there. So for the hair, it's not a separate piece that is sculpted and then sort of attached on. This is sculpted as part of the head. So we do have a painted hairline. I'm always a little bit worried because sometimes if it doesn't match up with the actual sculpted hair, it throws off the eye. This looks very nicely aligned. We've got kind of a flatter sculpted hair. He does have short hair, so it's completely, typical for them to use just the sculpted in piece, not a separate piece. You can see it coming around there in the back. We've got a little bit of sort of sculpting, giving it not too much of a blunt edge there in the back. It looks very nice. And that grey hair coming down to the sculpted beard, once again painted with the same grey color. Doesn't look like we've got two tones for the hair and beard. It's just that grey color, but I think it looks really nice. And of course, we've also got the mustache there as well. So the painting for the eyebrows and the eyes, fantastic. And then we've got the grey for the hair and facial hair there as well. Absolutely fantastic. It looks like Count Dooku. Very, very nice. For the rest of the costume, a little bit of a simpler design compared to some of the other Sith Lords that we see on screen. He has a dark brown tunic, which kind of closes with a little bit of a flap across the front here. Of course, we've got that sort of chain and clasp for his cape, but it's mostly dark brown all the way down to the edge of the sleeves here. We've got dark brown pants and shiny gloss black boots. We do have a brown leather belt here in a contrasting lighter brown and a little silver painted detail for the buckle that is used to sort of hang the lightsaber hilt on there. So not a lot of painting. You can see here on the back, just lifting up the cape very softly. We've just got that sort of a flat belt here across in the back as being basically the only painted element on the back of this figure. Very nice and tidy though, with just that belt. So not a lot of places to go wrong if the face looks good. The belt's the only other painted component. and that little silver detail there looking very nice. You can see in the middle of it we have a black circle that is a peg hole so that we can attach the hilt to his belt, which I'm hoping is going to fit in there nicely. Sometimes I get a little bit worried about the little pegs on lightsaber hilts. If you snap it off, it's going to be lodged in there forever, so I'm going to be very careful, but I do think that that would be kind of fun to be able to attach his very distinctive hilt on his belt there. I like the painting here. It's nice and clean, but of course not too much details, not in too many places to go wrong. The face looks good. The rest of this I am assuming is just cast in this brown plastic, so there's no real paint job there. So, and then of course we've got the gloss black boots. So overall, in terms of the sculpting, head is fantastic. I love the creases that Hasbro does for their sort of fabric sculpting and the like. So you can see the sort of the gatherers and folds in the back of the tunic here. This is kind of a deep crease sculpted into the sort of length here, but it isn't actually a split. That's just sort of a crease. It kind of looks like a line where they might hide a split, but it isn't. That's just a deep crease. But you can see that we do have splits here on the sides. I was actually quite impressed. This looks so similar to this. I thought it was the same plastic. This is hard plastic like most Black Series torsos are. This is completely flexible. I'm actually really liking how flexible this plastic is, because of course when tunics come down over the thigh, if it's sealed across the side here, it's going to restrict leg movement. So we have a split here and flexible plastic, so we can still get some movement out of the legs there. The split comes all the way just below the belt. We've got a little bit of a rounded top edge to the split to hopefully try and stop it from splitting up higher. I'm always very careful when the splits are involved because I don't want to risk splitting it. I have seen that on one or two of my figures straight out of the packaging, so I'm very, very careful stressing this too much. This one is very close to the belt. I don't want to risk it going up any higher. You can see the belt details there looking very nice. So really nice to see the close match in both the color and just the sort of the finish. Sometimes the hard plastic has a bit more of a gloss finish than the sort of slightly more matte finish of the flexible plastic, but it's really nice. It didn't actually catch my eye as being different, not till I got it out of the packaging and could really feel it. You'll notice the front section here doesn't have many creases sculpted into it like we have here in the back, because this does tend to kind of reinforce the rubbery plastic, makes it sort of more rigid. But in the back, it's not too bad, but I kind of have to sort of really pinch it and move it around. This nice smooth section here, because of course Count Dooku, he's distinguished. He has his very nice tunic here. He's not going to have too many wrinkles, so it is a lot more flexible in the front. So I'm hoping to be able to get some good posing there. So overall, really nice sculpting, not too complicated. It kind of looks like a dark brown, almost like a version of Krennic, sort of the tunic with the belt, very nice cape and knee-high boots. It kind of, you know, giving sort of foreshadowing of the Empire here mixed with Sith, which is really nice. Okay. Very nice sculpting, not too surprising. Of course, I do like to check out the backs of figures because you don't really see them when you're buying them in the plastic bubble. He looks great. Let's check out the articulation. So the cape here comes up very close under the neck. I'm hoping that this won't be too tricky to kind of move around. I really don't want to sort of catch this in here. I don't want to sort of damage the edge of the soft goods, but we can turn his head very easily. Very nice. Tipping his neck up, you can just see sort of the sculpted plastic neckline of his tunic just tucked in there underneath the jawline there. You can see his neck there very easily. And if I can kind of catch that a little bit up behind his hair, it comes up a little bit high, but I'm not too worried now because I've kind of got it outside of his hair. Nice and easy, front and back. Lots of movement there. Checking out these shoulders, going to lift the cape up very carefully. We've got that sort of two-part shoulder joint here, which means that we can get a lot of movement. We've got the torso here, then we've got the sort of inner shoulder attachment, and then the actual arm and shoulder piece here. So we've kind of got the three sections, which means that we get a little bit more movement. You can hopefully see it's a dark color brown. I'm hoping this shows up on camera. You can see that we have that movement as well as sort of moving around. Now, trying to get the cape to just sort of sit out of the way so I can show the detail. He's got sort of a little bit of an extending lip here on the shoulder, so I'm hoping that's not really going to get in too much of the way when I try and raise the arm up. A little bit stiff straight out of the box, but his arm can come nice and straight. In terms of swiveling up, nice and easy, no worries there. That's nice and easy to move. And you can kind of notice as I'm moving him around, he is moving a lot around the waist, even just sort of grabbing him by the arm. So you're getting a lot of movement there already. In terms of moving his arms sort of rotationally forward and back, you can kind of see where this is coming in to play, because I can kind of bring his arm a little bit more forward towards the front of the chest. A lot of movement there. He does use a lightsaber, so we do want to do some cool lightsaber poses. We can see the same sculpting on the other shoulder there, so lots of movement. Elbows, we've got lots of creases going on for the tunic around the elbows there. Does a pretty good job of hiding. Very easy to move his elbows, but not too sort of flimsy. Getting a lot of movement at the shoulder here as I'm moving this around, so he should be a lot of fun for posing with his lightsaber there. You can see just how much he's going to move there. Of course, we can rotate there at the elbows as well. For the hands, some figures have those sort of ones that rock backwards and forwards, others are just more sort of ball jointed. He has very deep sleeves at the ends of his tunic cuffs here. So the join for his wrists is way deep inside. So it's a little bit hard to see where the join is. It's really quite deep. So I think I'm just gonna get mostly just the sort of swivel, because it feels like the attachment point's actually quite recessed inside the end of the sleeve, because I can actually see right down in there. So I don't know that I'm actually gonna get much. It's like a little bit of a wiggle, but it's not really going to help me in terms of articulation. I'm not going to get those really strong movements. Sometimes you get with those articulation points where you can sort of really see the cut in the back of the hand, so you can really get some steep angles. This one, I can actually see it on the underside in the palm, so it's going to be doing this motion, but it's not, I'm not getting a lot because of the cuff. It's very tight around the wrist, so I can actually see it there. I wonder if I'm digging. I just don't see it on this hand. I thought I would see it sort of here, like I can on this hand. I can see it on that hand, but I can't see it on this one, so it's eluding me. I do apologize. I can't spot it. Oh, I think it's in the side of his hand. It's very, very tucked in there, but I think I just make out a side to side, which is why I get a little bit of this. It's not really side to side. Is it just tight? Okay, I think I loosened it up. There we go. It's very tight and it's very hidden. I don't like wrenching articulation points when I can't see the actual angle of movement. I don't want to sort of twist a join into an angle it's not supposed to go and potentially break something. I really don't want to break my toys. But yes, it was very stiff, but he does have a little bit of a side to side. It's not a very strong angle. And then this one is more of the up and down there. So we do have those articulation points there at the wrist, but they're very hard to see. I guess that's kind of a good thing sometimes. You don't want articulation to really cut through and be really obvious, sometimes a bit ugly, but because the cuffs come down so close to his wrists, it is kind of breaking his range of movement down to just very short, sort of a bit more of a wiggle than a real full range of motion. But this guy keeps moving at the waist. He really wants to move around. This is really smooth. I almost feel like he's gonna dance. Moving around side to side, nice and easy there. He can move forward and back quite a lot, I have to say. He really rocks. It kind of exposes a little bit, sort of, you get the sort of cutting in where it starts to shape and taper down into the join, but it doesn't look awful. Some it kind of really pinches in and it looks obvious when you start swiveling them around. It does look a little bit smoother in terms of the sculpting to have them a little bit more upright, but you've got a lot a lot of movement here, and especially that side to side. That's just very easy to move. On my particular figure, he might be a little bit tighter on others. A lot of movement there at the waist, and I do like the fact that it's nicely hidden with the belt there. Works really well. Moving down to the legs, I'm going to try and split his legs apart, being very gentle with those side seams so we can see the articulation in the section here. We have a shiny barbell component there in between the legs. We can see that we are gently splitting open the side splits there. You can see just kind of stressing it there at the top, but I feel like it's actually the legs that are stopping the articulation from going further rather than the plastic. I feel like I could actually bend the plastic further. It's opening it up there at the side, but I don't actually feel like this is actually restricting the legs. It is actually the articulation there in the underside. So that's really nice. Very good. I like it when the tunics are not getting too much in the way, and I don't feel like I'm really stressing them out too much. So the flexible lower tunic doesn't get in the way for moving legs out to the side. Let's see how we do with going out to the front, because this tends to be where we do get a little bit of resistance. You can see how well it is just creasing on its own, flexing there. You can see how it's opening up that split there at the side. Coming up, the leg itself is going to stop about there. That's a pretty high kick considering he's got quite a long plastic tunic there. If I wanted to sit him down, I can do that. It's not looking too awkward. It's kind of floating a little bit there because of the way that it's kind of folding in across the front there, but it doesn't really feel like the actual tunic is restricting the movement in that position, which is quite nice. Of course, if I pull his legs back down, it kind of sits up there, slowly gets back down. In terms of the back, we generally don't get quite the same angle, but that's still pretty good. You can see the way that the tunic is getting open there at the sides with the split. Pretty good, to be honest. And now that I've got the leg sort of back, I'm just going to be trying to be very gentle with my figure. We can see that we have an upper thigh swivel here as well. It isn't sort of visible. You can see that there is a slight side seam sort of sculpting. So this would be where it was sort of sitting in a neutral position. But because the tunic is sort of laying over this, you can really play with this without it sort of interrupting the sculpting. And it is very dark brown. It doesn't really matter too much if it's not lined up. So we do have that functionality sort of tucked away under there. And of course, when the tunic is down, you're not going to see it there at all because the thigh swivel is about, where is it? Here, just here, tucked underneath the length of the tunic. So that's nice. So you've got the thigh swivel on both sides. A little bit clicky, but of course it's there. And I really like the way that the boots come to join up with the pants here. So we've kind of got the pants just sort of hanging down as if they were sort of tucked in and a little bit bloused at the top of his tall, shiny riding boots. You can see the articulation style. His cape's getting everywhere. There in the back, it's a dark color, so it does a pretty good job of hiding the articulation. He's very tight in the knees straight out of the packaging. I really don't want to break a joint, so I'm just being a little bit gentle there. So I can get the leg up to, it's stopping about here when I'm getting the sculpting of the thigh and the boot kind of meeting here right at that tight point. That looks pretty fine. We do have a swivel here at the knee as well, but we don't have a swivel at the top of the boots like some modern figures do. Just to sort of give a little bit more range of motion, I do tend to see the top of the boot swivel on figures that don't have a thigh swivel. He does have a thigh swivel, so I wasn't really expecting to see a top of the boot swivel because it's so close to the knee as well. I don't know that it would necessarily really work when we've got the articulation just right there with that sort of front of the knee coming right there to the boots. Lovely gloss finish here on the boots. We don't have any painted or really any sculpted details. Some black shiny boots have buckles around the ankles or at the top. Dooku doesn't have any, so we don't have any sort of thing to really get in the way of ankle articulation. So we've got quite a nice point there and all the way up here as well. And of course we can kind of generally, it's a little bit tight in the ankles, but we do have that sort of ability to get them at that sort of swivel there, a little bit there at the ankles. And of course we can swivel at that proper knee joint there as well. So we've got lots of range of movement there in the legs, which is kind of fun. I often think of Dooku as kind of being very sort of dignified, standing upright, but of course we do have him fighting Yoda, Obi-Wan and Anakin. So there's lots of possibility for awesome lightsaber poses with different fights, and I want to be able to sort of really work with posing of him. So that's just a lot of movement. I'm always a little bit anxious sometimes with the rubbery tunics that come down in terms of, are they going to really be able to sort of get out of the way and let the legs move? But this one is pretty good. Very happy with that. And of course, his arms are good. We can get his hands tight and close to the body. He doesn't really use a two-handed lightsaber grip, but you can see in another lifetime, we could get his hands lining up to hold on to a lightsaber with two hands pretty easily. But of course, he has a very distinctive curved lightsaber, and I really want to see this figure holding his distinctive lightsaber, just adjusting him. He really does want to move around a little bit. Some figures are very tight out of the packaging. Others, you can see that they really do want to move. So of course, Count Dooku has an awesome curved lightsaber hilt. The Black Series figures generally come with one lightsaber, a hilt with a removable blade. So if you want to attach the hilt to the figure as worn on the belt, you're going to have to remove the blade. Unlike the smaller TVC 3.75-inch line, that comes with one hilt accessory and then generally a lit, ignited, all-in-one piece saber as well. I kind of wish that Hasbro would do that for the Black Series as well. I don't like removing the blades if I want to put them on the hilt, because these ones just have the tendency of snapping at that little attachment point. If it was all one solid thing, yes, you can still break it, but it doesn't have that really tiny weak point. In terms of the actual sculpting for the lightsaber, we've got, of course, some really nice details. We've got this little textured sort of grip section in black, an actual metallic silver. Sometimes Hasbro uses just a gray plastic like we have for Count Dooku's clasp and chain here, but you can see that this is actually a painted metallic silver, and I really do prefer, where appropriate, that Hasbro use metallic paint. Just gives it a little bit more of a gloss. We've got some really nice sculpted details. Of course, we've got the little hook here by the emitter, and you can see coming out here from the base we have a small short circle peg there, which should hopefully fit into that hole on his belt there. So of course he is quite unique in that he actually comes with two different lightsaber blades. We have the standard one, you can see, fantastic Sith red, and then we have sort of a swoosh action blade. It's got a slightly stronger color along one leading edge, so that would be sort of where the blade is kind of swooshing in an action, because it kind of gradients out to a lighter color along here, so it kind of gives a bit of motion. I haven't come across this in a Black Series very often. I've seen it in larger scale toys like Hot Toys. It is weightier, it is, you know, more plastic, so I do find them a little bit heavier. I'm hoping that the wrists on this figure will be tight enough to hold it in a pose and it won't just sag. I found that on some other toys the weight of the extra plastic just makes the lightsabers tip towards the ground, so I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case here. So you can see the peg puts the lightsaber just a little bit longer for the action blade. If I were to insert this into the base, it looks just a little bit longer. I do like the strong red of this. This does look a little bit paler, a little bit more on the pink side, but I do like the fact that we've got that accessory. This is always the nervous part, taking this out. I'm really hoping it's got a bit of a tight, there we go, pop out. So you can see the very narrow peg. There is a little bit of sort of a ridge that kind of creates that pop and it clicks in there. And just when I was pulling this in and out, there is just this little bit here at the edge is just very rough on the fingers. So I was just trying not to sort of potentially break this little peg here. And you can see the hole there to attach the pieces. Before I try the alternate blade, I just want to try and see how this fits. Some of these, they go in very easily and I feel like they might fall out. Others, I feel like I'm going to snap off the little peg. I'm hoping this is in a nice even middle ground. Oh, it's a bit of a tight fit, I have to say. It goes in there, so it's very secure. But it's kind of the accessory sort of attachment point where I'm not going to be pulling it on and off too often. I don't want to risk snapping that little peg off and getting it permanently lodged in the belt there, but it does look very nice, doesn't it? So striking. And of course he does have a few monologues where he is not a lightsaber fighting, of course, when he has Obi-Wan Kenobi captured. And so, of course, many collectors may want to just display him with the lightsaber hilt on his belt instead. Just going to lay him there in the back because I want to see what this action blade looks like. So I'm not sure which way I want the leading edge to go, so I'm just going to try and insert this in. Okay, that was actually an easier click. It didn't take quite as much force to get in as I thought. You can see the swoosh there. So I kind of know what characters look like when they're holding this blade, so I wanted to attach the action blade before I put it into Dooku's hand. So this one's a little bit tricky because of course we've got the curve and we've got a peg. Another reason why I wish Hasbro would give us two accessories. I don't like pushing these pegs through their hands. They often get caught on the fingertips, so I'm not quite sure. I might have to kind of press this one in past the fingers because that peg is going to get in the way. But pressing it in, I'm not doing a very good job of showing because I'm just trying to do it very carefully past his thumb. So I'm going to put it into his hand. He does tend to sort of have a bit of a curved grip to his hand there as well. I did forget to talk about his hands. I know a lot of characters have trigger fingers. Sith Lords don't really wield blasters that often, but I do like the way that he's kind of got a staggered grip. It's kind of a leading edge, more like this, rather than the sort of the classic sort of just rounded grip like he has on his other hand. His other hand's a little bit more there. This has just got a nice kind of curved grip to really fit his lightsaber. So I like that it feels like they've sculpted a hand to fit Count Dooku's very unique lightsaber. Doesn't feel like they've just grabbed a human classic lightsaber grip hand. And of course, you could put it in his other hand, but I don't really think of Dooku as doing that. And as you can see, it's not pulling his hand down, which I'm really thankful for because I was hoping it wouldn't be too heavy. I didn't find that his hands were particularly loose at the wrist there. So I'm curious to see how well he's going to stand up. That's really cool. Because of course, that scene, particularly when he's fighting Anakin and they kind of cut the cords to the lights and you get that dark scene where you're kind of getting the lightsaber swooshes, the lighting casting across their face as they are fighting on Geonosis in that sort of hangar. This looks really, really cool. I know it's not as strong a red, but it does tend to be a little bit paler when it's doing that swoosh. And this is really cool. I'm really liking this accessory. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about seeing Dooku with this sort of action blade, but I think that looks really cool. Now I really do want a Attack of the Clones. I know this is an episode 3 figure, but I really do think he would be cool with a Yoda next to him there as well. Of course, I'm patiently waiting for Hasbro to re-release Anakin and Obi-Wan in a redo figure because of course I was really hoping they would do them in the anniversary collection. Fingers crossed they're still on their way later this year. There's lots of rumors that they are still on their way because of course a lot of collectors want the new sort of tweaked versions. You know, Hasbro's doing a lot of adjusting and improvements on figures, particularly around digital printing and articulation. So fingers crossed we've got some fantastic Anakin and Obi-Wan figures coming in the Black Series line later this year for the 20th anniversary of episode 3 because I really want to put them alongside Count Dooku because of course technically this is for episode 3, but I think he'd look pretty cool fighting Grandmaster Yoda there as well. He is very, very cool. Even if you don't collect all Black Series figures, you can't ignore the cool that is just the original Sith Lords from the movies. And of course, Count Dooku is one of them. He looks really, really cool. You really want to sort of get like a Sith Lord lineup there. That lightsaber looks really cool. Not too detailed, but I do like the articulation, the facial likeness there, really spot on. That's very important. And I love the soft goods cape so we can just really play around with posing around the arms and it's not going to get in the way or potentially throw them off balance because some of those plastic capes do that. You've got a lot of bulk on the back, but because this is soft goods, it's just going to move around and work with the poses that you want to. I'm not too adventurous with my poses. Most of my Black Series figures are pretty straight-legged standing up, usually posing posing something with their accessories around their arms, and I'm really liking. This looks very cool, a fun alternate. And of course, you don't necessarily have to use this blade for Count Dooku. If you have any other red lightsaber wielding Black Series figures, you could take this blade and swap it for somebody else because he does have the alternate. You don't have to use that one. It's kind of fun having the two blades. Also useful if you accidentally snap one. You've got a backup there. Maybe Black Series figures should come with two blades. This would be a fun variation for all lightsaber Black Series figures. Fingers crossed, maybe we'll see that in the future. I do think that the Black Series line could do with just a few more accessories. I do feel like the Vintage Collection 3.75-inch line gets a little bit spoiled with their accessories. I would like to see just maybe one or two more in the Black Series line, and this is a fun place to start. Here's a cool figure, not overly complicated, but an important Star Wars character in the prequels, and really fun to have a Sith Lord as part of the Revenge of the Sith collection. I had a lot of fun unboxing him. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up another Star Wars Black Series figure and had so much fun checking out the details. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Black Series fan, I recently unboxed the Episode 3 Anniversary Kit Fisto figure. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Black Series unboxing playlist. This is the way.